Good morning, everybody. How are you feeling?
Great.
Oh, thank you. So, my name is Antti Kurittu. I'm with Traficom. We just changed names. It used to be Ficora, now it's Traficom, so hooray for us. Basically, I work with the National Cybersecurity Center, and I'm here to talk about something that's, well, I wouldn't say neglected, but something that we don't really think that much about. It's the user and his psychology when he's being scammed. And the thing is, I'm not a psychologist, as some of you know, and will be quite obvious after I'm done. So if something I say isn't actually true, please contact me and tell me, because I don't want to spread lies. But these are the things that I've read and kind of think I might have something to say about. So basically the thing is that we all have an operating system that's really old. It's in our heads. And it's very hard to upgrade those. And we basically, well, who's been to school ever? It takes 9 years to teach us even the basic things that you need to go and study some more, and then you have to study some more. So it's really hard to run software upgrades to your brain. It's designed as a elaborate snake detection mechanism, basically. It just tries to keep you alive. And this is a very good tool for every attacker there, because they can manipulate the user. It's very prone to exploitation, as we will see. And the thing is that even the most secure systems out there have users, and when you manipulate those users, you can gain access to those systems. So it's basically impossible to build secure systems unless you eliminate all the users, but then you don't have a system, so why would you do that? And users, well, predominantly, they have access to a lot of stuff that they don't really need in their day-to-day job. They have more access to shared drives, which have documents that they don't need in their daily lives. So exploiting one user can give access to a lot of information outside his primary work stuff. And the human factor is being held constant, because technology evolves. Computers are different now than they were in 1995, but the users haven't changed that much since 1995. So I'll tell you a little bit about how to build an attack. So basically, these are the things that make us human. These are the things that make us social animals that can get together in a group like this and sit in a big hall without fighting constantly for resources or whatever. You couldn't get a bunch of chimps here sitting peacefully and listening to one chimp talk. But we're humans, we're social, so we can do this. It's wonderful. We want to be helpful to other humans. Even, well, if you go to Twitter, it doesn't look like that, but in a social setting, not in social media, we are quite helpful, and we're nice, and we want to feel important and accepted and validated, and we want positive outcomes from social situations because we need social capital to live in a society of humans. And all of these things can be and are being actively exploited to attack us. And I'd like to draw your attention to the last point, that we react instinctively when we're in a hurry. And that means, well, the brain is interesting because it has kind of layers in it. I think it was Kahneman or somebody who wrote this very popular book about thinking fast and slow. And there's kind of two layers. There's the practical, the rational layer that makes you able to, say, write a Python script or assemble a computer. And then there's the older operating system. There's trying to keep you alive. And when we get into a situation when we're scared, we go down to the lower operating system, and that makes us bypass the critical faculties of our brains and thinking about things. So this is being used in marketing, of course. It's being used in crime, of course, and all sorts of things. It's being even used in personal relationships. I found an interesting thing when I went and read some social psychology about this subject. There are two routes of persuasion. We can say that every situation that's a fraud, somebody's trying to sell you something, a bunch of goods or services, and when you have a situation where what you're selling can be described accurately, for example, a car. You can take somebody and show them the car, and this is my car, look how beautiful it is. It's red, that's nice. It has an engine, it has seats, go ahead. You take it for a test drive. You can use a central route of persuasion to sell that car to somebody, because you actually have the car, and you can show it to the person you're dealing with, and you can work out a common agreement on what's the worth of the car, exchange money, somebody has a new car and you have some money. That's quite simple. But when you're selling something that doesn't actually exist, like say $15 million gold dollars in Nigeria somewhere, you can't do this. You can't use a central route of persuasion because you can't just have somebody examine the goods and then agree on a price. Because there are no goods, but you still want the price. So we have to use a peripheral route of persuasion, which is actually quite hard to pronounce if I'm honest with you. So you have to use, kind of go around the fact that you don't have the car or the gold or whatever, bitcoins, whatever you're selling. You have to go around the fact and use, well, mental cues, shortcuts, emotions, and trigger an emotional response so that somebody will accept what you're selling. And the emotional reaction here is the key. The criminals can make prospective victims more susceptible to peripheral routes to persuasion. They can use statements and make you afraid. Like we've all heard about these ransom cases where the criminals contact an organization and say that we will DDoS the living hell out of you unless you pay us some bitcoins. Well, they're not actually DDoSing anyone. They don't have the capability, but they're still selling a bad load of goods using these technologies. Techniques, actually. This is not a technology. Strong emotions, that's the key. So you get the override, the critical brain, and you go down to the lizard brain that's mostly interested in snakes, mating, eating, fighting, all the good stuff that makes us animals. The social scientists have noticed like 6 basic facts on these routes of persuasion. I came across this when I was reading about frauds. It's basically, well, phishing is fraud. You're defrauding somebody, try to get their credentials or whatever. There are 6 main factors. I'll just go through them one at a time. I checked the numbers this morning on number 1, authority. People respect authority, generally, not everybody. Maybe the percentage here is even higher that you might not have that much of a respect for formal authority, but you have respect to authority in your hierarchy. Somebody has authority in something that you're doing. If you're one of the best hackers, there's always the top hacker who you respect. That's your authority. So they made, in 1966, the scientists made an experiment, I think, yeah. They made a social experiment. They called up a bunch of nurses in a hospital. And they had set up the situation so that in the medicine cabinet there was this fictional medication that very clearly said on the bottle that 10 milligrams is the most that you can give of this medication or else the patient will die. So they just phoned up, cold called different hospitals and told nurses to go to the medicine cabinet. My name is Dr. Jones. You take that medicine and you give 20 milligrams of that medicine to patient Jones in the other room. 22 nurses picked up the call and 21 complied. There were 3 rules set for them: not to take orders over the phone, always check the dosage, and the third one was something, I can't remember now what it was, but there were rules set there that you're not supposed to work like this, and they got a 95% compliance rate from these nurses just by appealing to authority. You're a doctor. Well, it's impossible to verify over the phone. Well, it works. I used to be a police officer, so I tried this. I had to use this a couple of times. I called up people and I said, this is Antti Kurittu from the Helsinki Police Department. Can you please help me and tell me these and these things? And most people would tell you anything you ask. I was shocked by it. It made my life easier. I didn't have to drive all the way down there to show my badge or anything, but I kind of always hoped that they would ask. A couple of people said, I'll call you back from the switchboard. Give me the number of the switchboard, or I'll check it from the internet. I'll call you back in 2 minutes. That's a great way to think. But, well, authority, you're scared, the cops call you. Why? What has happened? Who's seen the line around the supermarket where they're sharing, giving out free buckets? Well, that's scarcity there for you. There's 500 free buckets. And it gets normal, well, mostly normal, sane humans to stand in a line around a market to get a free bucket. It costs like €2. I think that's scarcity that's working there, and we've all seen these limited time offers, and it's It's a way to persuade you that something is more valuable than it actually is when it's a scarce resource. We're being triggered about those things. Like, I'd say a good example is when you get a message saying that your account is hacked and you have 2 hours to fix this situation. There's a scarcity of time there. And liking and similarity. I have a small story about this too. I went with my family to a water park and they called me up and said that, would you be interested in hearing a sales pitch for a timeshare? I'm like, no. We'll give you 300 euros. Sure, I'll come over. And we'll just need 2 hours of your time and we'll introduce you to our wonderful way to own a piece of property somewhere where you're never going to go. And the lady who was selling it to me spent the first 45 minutes getting to know me. She was very pleasant, very social, very interested in everything I had to say, which is wonderful. And we just spoke for 45 minutes and she was building a rapport there. Because she knew that she has a hard bargain there. She's selling something that everybody kind of already thinks is a scam. And they had to bribe me for 300 euros to even be there. So she really, really worked those muscles. And it was interesting because I went there, I wanted to see how this works, and I was trying to pay attention to the whole thing. And then we went to the pitch, and I tried to pick up all the things that she's doing because she's selling me something. And even in the end, I considered for a while, well, maybe timeshare would be nice. And there's no, don't do it. But she almost got me. She used all these things except authority. But money, bribing, being nice. I almost wanted to call her up later on and how you been? Want to come to my wedding? And surprisingly, all the things that happened to me had also happened to somebody she knows. And well, she had something, her sister was getting married and everything. And she was very good. I didn't buy the timeshare though. But reciprocation was in there too because she's doing something nice for me. She's giving me a better price on this timeshare. So it would be only prudent of me to buy it now that she's being so nice. Like, basically, you do something for somebody, it creates a social debt, of course. You help somebody move, well, they give you a bottle of whiskey, but you both feel that there's not a balance right there. And then when you ask them to help you move, they're more prone to say yes, and this can be leveraged in different situations. And commitment and consistency, because we deal with the social capital that we have because we want to thrive in a social environment, which means that when you say you do something, you usually try to do it. And if somebody gets you to say yes to something that you don't really want to do, you'll still probably do it, even if you realize later on that you're being played. So that's commitment and consistency for you. And social proof. This is one of the best ways to sell stuff online now, are user reviews. And we've seen this everywhere. Even in scam sites, they always have some Sarah from Facebook telling how this wonderful opportunity to work from home has changed her life. And there's a bunch of those, and 5 stars, 4.5 stars. 4.5 stars is more believable than 5 stars. So that must have been a real human. So they use this everywhere. I think somebody from verkkokauppa.com said that bringing in user reviews has a dramatic impact on their sales. So that stuff works, and criminals know that. The thing is, we've taken this whole social brain we have and we've supercharged it with social media, and well, it was fun for a while and now it's getting really dark and creepy. And the thing is that we bleed to the social media. We just give everything to it. There seems to be a generation growing up that doesn't have secrets or private affairs anymore, and they just say everything to Twitter. Like, this is a good example. When scammers are trying to scam you, they don't have to take that much time anymore to get information. I didn't pick up this tweet because it's somehow embarrassing or especially stupid or anything like that. It's just a regular tweet. This is a young lady who's working as a community manager at an organization, which I'm not going to name because it's not important. The point is that if you read this extremely regular tweet, you get a bunch of information about the company. And when you read 10 of these tweets or 100 of these tweets, you know basically everything you need to about this company and these people. And you can just gather all this information, and basically you can call it intelligence. Well, I did, open source intelligence. But let's unpack this for a while. So what is she actually saying here? Well, month end and year end are fast approaching. She's probably busy. A lot of transactions happening there. We're interested in transactions because we're criminals and we want money. Money is good. I can buy shoes and cars and whatever. So year end is approaching. Came in today to find out everyone in my department is extremely sick. Wonderful. There's a bunch of people away. I found this tweet by tweeting my boss is sick. There's a bunch of those. It doesn't mean that he does like cool skateboard tricks or anything. It's just away from the office. And the boss is on vacation for 2 weeks. She's also super sick this week. Guess who is expected to handle all the work? Oh, poor you. But that means she's handling a lot of tasks that she isn't used to handling, which means that she doesn't have kind of the sense that what's normal. We can exploit this. We can just go to the organization page and we can check she's using pronouns, it's English. She's talking about she. Well, probably the boss is the chief operations officer and she's over there as the community manager. So I have a lot of information here I can use to spoof a message and do basically a CEO fraud attack to this company. Just send it to the chief financial officer. So I know details about her life now. I know she's really stressed out. I know her boss is sick. All this stuff is out there. So I repurposed an old World War II motivational poster, I think. They didn't used to call these memes, but they're memes now. But it used to be just stuff. They'll just sink your company if you do that. Just why would you tell all your stuff to social media? Well, that's how we work today, and it's very addictive. There's a bunch of common attack methods that all share the idea that you're scamming the user here. And I don't think it's very reasonable to come here and tell you about phishing as it's a new thing, but I want you to take a look at these messages in a different light and try to see the psychology behind it and how the user reacts when they see a message. Like, let's take this for an example. Because, well, the thing is, we've been training users like we train dogs. Like, no, bad user, don't do that, don't click the link. Anybody can name like 5 information security rules that we tell people. We just tell them, don't click on links in emails. Well, everybody clicks on links on emails because you have to click on links on emails to get anything done. Like you get a confirmation message that says, click on this link. Okay, that's a bad rule. What's another bad rule? If you see a green lock, you're good to go. Well, half of phishing sites these days have the green lock there. The users don't know the difference, basically, because computers are hard to use. We know that. Computers are confusing. People don't like them that much. We do, but we're special and different. But regular users whose strengths are somewhere else, who just want to get their job done, the computer is an obstacle. And it's an obstacle that they silently resent every day, all day. And it's very hard to use. So, well, Mikko Hyppönen uses this as a good example. Why does the button up there say enable content when it actually should say run all the viruses in this document? Just says enable content. You just take a regular user out of the street and ask them, what does it mean when a button says enable content on a Word document? Oh, you click it. No, bad user, don't click on that button. How are you expected to follow that rule when you need to click that button to print the document? I don't know how. I think that's a bad rule. And using vague terms like only surf on trusted sites. What's a trusted site? Is it like a web page with trustworthy news? Is it a web shop? How do we know they're not cracked? Like this is useless stuff. But when you train the users to look at messages like this from the perspective that you're being manipulated, just look at this. This is a good example. It says, I'm not sure if you can see it, it says recovery my account on the button there. Because the criminals know that when you get this kind of message, it says, you sent a payment of $60 to Apple. You're like, no, I didn't. I don't even have an Apple account. Oh my God, somebody's stolen my Apple account. Something like this happens with you. It's designed to trigger an emotional reaction. Basically, makes you think that you're a victim of a crime. It doesn't have anything to do with your Apple account. But they put the biggest visual part of this message, aside from the Apple logo, which is an appeal to authority, by the way. You have the blue big button, which will take you out of danger zone, and you can just click it to recovery my account. A lot of users will do that because they get scared. and they don't stop to think about this message and pick it apart. Because when you pick it apart, it's obvious it's a scam. First of all, it's addressed to Mr. or Mrs. Clients with a capital C and, well, clients. And we use euros, it's still in US dollars. And why is there a link to resetting your account on a standard receipt? Like, there's not one in the ones that I get. But we're relying on users to not get emotionally manipulated like this, because we can't rely on users checking links. Because we have a domain name system that is hinging on the fact that you know the difference between a top-level domain and a domain name and a subdomain. But you can take 100 people from the street and ask them what's the difference between security.apple.com or apple.security.com. They can't tell you. It just has something to do with Apple security. So we see this. They're using this confusion and this unreasonable expectation that we have set for the users to fool them. To take a look at this is earlscan.io, which I every once in a while use to check weird weird addresses I get. It just says new OPFI. Okay, it's new, but that explains why it's different. It's OP. Well, that's a trustworthy bank. That's an appeal to authority. And FI, hey, I'm in Finland. And F verkkopankki.xyz. We all laugh at the .xyz top-level domain, but the users, they don't know. They just click it, and there's a very small black and white picture of what the website looks like. It looks exactly like the web page that they're expecting. And if it's not HTTPS encrypted, and I think this one actually is because Let's Encrypt gives everybody free certificates these days, they can just put a picture of the green lock on the page. Because we've told them to look for the green lock. And when they see it, they're very happy to give all their details. And usually, well, the message accompanying a page like this says something that will make you react emotionally. This takes me to CEO fraud and business email compromise, which BEC is for. Basically, the criminals, they're actually quite smart. They realized one day that we're banging our heads against technical defenses that are getting better and better and better. So we can just, well, I should just send an email to the CFO, ask the CEO, and ask them to deposit 75,000 euros to a Chinese bank account. I wonder if that works. Well, it turns out it works. It works pretty well. And when you leverage the social manipulation tools when you're doing that message, it can be very effective. Because let's go back to the beginning where I said we want to be helpful. We want to get validated. We want to be useful. We want to enhance our social standing in the group that we are in. Let's say it's your work. And your boss asks you, and he starts by saying, hey, you there, always liked you. I know I can count on you. This has to remain confidential. It has to be done today. And please don't talk to anybody. But can you send $7,500,000 to a Chinese bank account? And you could be manipulated like this. Instead of telling your boss that, no, we don't do business like that. Just come over and we'll talk about it. That's a lot of money. You might just do it and feel really good about it too. And information gathering is really easy these days because, well, Twitter's there, LinkedIn's there, Facebook's there, your web page is there, your cat's on Instagram. You can look at the pictures, see the background. You can get a lot of information from that stuff. Just craft a spoofed message, appeal to emotion, abuse weak email security, because we can't build technical defenses against this stuff. Like DH1 Express is just as good as DHL Express. Are we supposed to expect that DHL will register all the possible permutations of the domain name that could be used to spoof them? Like, no. It has to be the user who smells that something fishy is going on and stops there. Then just ask for money and move money out. And, well, we all know how this works. This is also, well, you should mistrust your sense of luck. Basically, how often do you actually get lucky? How many of you have a phone in your pocket that you paid exactly €1 for? Well, nobody has them. Well, somebody has. Well, congratulations, sir. The point is that this is, on its face, it's obviously fake. It's a $700 phone. So why would it cost €1? What's the business logic in this? But there is no business logic. You just get emotionally manipulated because you feel like, oh, god damn, I got lucky. I got so lucky. I can get a cheap phone for free. I'll just send, credit card details. I'll just fill those in. This is the sad truth. This is a Finnish article, and I'll translate it to all of you who don't speak any Finnish. It says, Finnish man fell into a €1 scam. €1,000 from his credit card was lost, basically. And they use web pages like Ilta-Sanomat, which is a Finnish news site, because that is also an appeal to authority, its similarity. You know the site. It doesn't actually exist at iltasanomat.fi. It has a different address. Probably lives in the back room of a Brazilian shoe store somewhere. But it's presented as news, and we trust the news. Now this works. It works pretty well. We keep seeing it all the time. This is fun. Because when you add some drama to this stuff, it can get really, really funny. Like this guy, this person, my dear, hear the cry of an orphan as I have noticed that I am an orphan. I think he just came home one day and I was like, Mom, Dad, shit, better send an email. So they just sent me this. And I replied to this message. I'm trying to do the thing where you send back messages and then you make funny YouTube videos, but I'm too lazy and unimaginative to get anyone to swallow my hooks, so I think I overdid it also. So not going to show you the messages that I sent back, but I quickly received a picture from this sender of this young lady who's sitting there and a very legitimate looking Burkina Faso UNHCR refugee card and this sub story about how everybody in her family is dead, but luckily she has a lot of money and I could get a piece of it if I help her. So I checked who this was. I did a Google image search. And she's the 13-year-old daughter of this Nigerian footballer who's staring angrily here. So I sent back the picture of the footballer because she said that her parents are dead, so I said, please stop saying I'm dead. Didn't receive a reply. The proof of concept for this thing is from the 1700s, actually. I think the first thing they printed when they got the printing press going was a Bible, and the other one was, Dear sir, I have some money for you, for a small investment. You can get in on it. It's called The Letter from Jerusalem. You should read up on it. It's very interesting. There's somebody in a jail somewhere, and they have a lot of money, and they think they can bribe their jailer, but sadly they don't have the funds at their disposal at this moment, which is where you, good sir, enter. And if you would just give me some money and I'll bribe the guard and I'll get my fortune and I'll pay you back handsomely. And these were spread as printed papers. And it starts with the same thing as a lot of these Nigerian letters, which says that you might be surprised to get this message as we have never met. It's like, but they haven't changed this since the 1700s because, well, I don't know why. I read a theory that I like. Basically, let's all agree first that the intelligence of people goes on a normal distribution. So we have the normal curve here, and the 100 is in the middle. And on the right hand, we have all the geniuses. On the left hand, we have, well, the others. And it's a self-selecting process. When you send these messages to everybody, the others might reply. And out of those people who haven't, to this date, heard about this scam, you should scam those people because there's no use trying to scam the smartest people in the country because it's a lot harder. But then again, an old magician's wisdom is that it's actually easier to scam an intelligent person because they think that their genius-level intelligence will protect them somehow. And you can just use that to your advantage. Well, she didn't get any money from me. But we can see the emotional manipulation here working, at least attempting to work. And I'm sure a lot of people are still sending money to Nigeria. There's even, when you drive Hämeenlinna-Väylä, there used to be this big pole there that said Sunny Car Center, and I think it's something to do with something like this. I have no idea what the demographics are, because there's nobody I've met who's come to me and said that I've sent 10,000 euros to a Nigerian prince So the sample size is very small. I can't give you any details on that, but that's just my guess. Then there's the other financial scam. Basically, again, greed, validation, laziness. You can just sit on your ass and wear a bikini and bathe in dollars. You don't have to do anything. Just a small initial payment. We have this wonderful machine here on the internet. It's technology, you wouldn't understand it, so I won't explain it. But you put money in this end, and in this end, you get a lot of more money. Which is always weird, because somebody's trying to sell you a money-making machine. Why would you sell a money-making machine? You have a money-making machine. You don't need to sell anything. I mean, it never works. But when this attractive young lady is flashing the dollars there, and you think, hey, I could also be an attractive young lady. So you put your money in there. And the thing is, you do small payments over a long period of time, and that accumulates. Because they don't ask for 10,000 euros at first, they'll ask for 500 and then 100 every month or something like that. And then you can just see how your money grows in the service. And when you try to cash out, it doesn't actually work. They say, well, there's a service charge for cashing out, so sir, you have to pay 1,200 euros or something like that. They can't, for some technical reason, you wouldn't understand it, it's a technical reason, they can't take it from the money that you have in the service, but you have to pay extra. And when you pay that extra, there's taxes, of course. You have to pay those taxes, and then you never see that money either. And then at some point, the website just goes down. And you learn a very valuable lesson. The thing is, I spoke with somebody from a bank, and they said that mostly guys fall for this. And that's probably why the lady is there, too. Guys think they're so clever. Like, I can make so much money just by using my wonderful brain and being a risk taker. Ladies love risk takers, but, well, they're called risks for a reason. This is, in my opinion, one of the lowest forms of scamming crime, romance scams. And I read up on this too, and the demographics here, they don't follow any social justice paradigms. They just usually target older, more middle-aged, well-educated women with these attacks. Contacts made mostly via social media, but there are contacts made in different kinds of services like SoundCloud, Spotify. You can make the initial contact basically anywhere. And usually the guys that the scammers are pretending to be are like single men, of course, high status, some authority mixed in there. They're usually like military men. I think generals or at least some kind of a major or a lieutenant, maybe even an odd captain is the choice at this moment. I don't know why. Well, I think it's sexy or something. And they're usually widows, 45, 50-year-old widows. And that's actually, I think that's kind of important that they're widows. They're not 50-year-old single guys, because women usually see that as a red flag. But if you're a widow, well, you've been pre-approved by the females of the world, you've been married before, so you know how that thing works. You probably know how to fold your own sheets and do all this stuff. And there's a tragic story also. There's this very handsome, very nice guy who has a tragic story and a lack of a woman in her life, his life. And children, of course, they have teenage children. This is also important that they're teenage, because it's wonderful that they have children and they're a father and it means they're caring and everything, but they're teenagers, so they're not your problem anymore. So they can come over and shovel snow for you or whatever. And these teenage children get into a lot of different exploits and problems. And so sometimes even funny to listen to this and read those reports if it wouldn't be so heartbreaking that this is being used as a form of crime. They're all sometimes, well, I think the actors like to stay local, so a lot of these white kids are in Africa working or studying for some reason, and they get into different situations, like they run their truck to the side of a rhino and now they're in a hospital somewhere and they need to be helped, but I'm stuck here in Afghanistan fighting these evil terrorists, so I can't help, so could you please send some money to this good Nigerian hospital here and pay his hospital bills. And the thing is, it's an actual relationship. It is. Just when you look at it from the outside without putting yourself into the shoes of the person who is in that relationship, it seems silly. Like, how would anyone fall for this? Like, it's so obvious. But it actually isn't. Because when it starts slowly and you build rapport, there are starting to become real emotions in these situations. Actual emotions. To somebody who doesn't exist, obviously, but you're still in love with them. And the idea that you're being scammed can be actively pushed away. Because banks stop most of the transactions that they try to send to these scammers and tell them that they're scammers. And the victims will argue with the security people of the bank and tell them that if you don't send that money to that poor man over there right now, I will change banks. And the people who work for the bank security usually say, well, sorry, we can't serve you in this bank, and have a happy new life in the next bank. And the next bank will hopefully do the same thing. And I haven't seen a lot of criminal reports of these. A couple, not many, but there's a lot of articles in magazines, daily magazines, and actually there are 4 books written on this, with a 5th one I think somebody's writing right now, and I spoke with the author. She wanted to interview me about this, and we spoke about this for a long while, and I realized that the thing is that when you realize that you're being played, not only do you feel like a fool, you're out of your money, you will never get it back, that's obvious, but also the person that you are in love with just died. And that is psychologically quite hard to deal with, because it's kind of, they used to exist and now they don't exist. I think the right resolution of analysis here is to talk about death, because the fictional person, even though they were never real, they still die and they remove themselves from your life. That can be very traumatic. And during that traumatic time, it's pretty hard to go to the police station where there's a 23-year-old senior constable sitting there and try to tell them exactly, with as much detail as you can muster, how stupid you've been. Especially in smaller places. Like in Helsinki, all the police officers don't know all the elderly ladies there. But when you go somewhere up north, smaller villages, everybody knows everybody. And, well, you're not supposed to tell as a police officer, but somebody overhears, and reports are public and everything, and you lose your reputation. And the thing is, these aren't stupid people who fall for this. They're well-educated women. And this is a direct quote. Of course, men get romance scammed too, but it's a bit different. But they're mostly women. Highly educated, intelligent. Well, if you have 500,000 to get scammed out of, you might have done something right in your life. You can't be a total dummy. Dummies are usually pretty poor, because, well, obviously. But when you get a highly educated person who's been, well, in a well-paying job, they might have $500,000 to get stolen. They're usually less kind, because this was surprising to me, because I went into the material with the preconception that most people who get scammed would show a higher, how would you say, percentage of this big 5 personality trait of agreeability. Like more disagreeable people, less kind people basically, wouldn't be so easy to scam, but it actually didn't correlate at all. I was surprised by that, but openness to new things and new experiences was a very significant factor. And that was surprising. And women tend to be more open than men as large groups, I mean, on average. So less kind people get scammed more easily, which is surprising. This is just one study, so take this with a grain of salt. And the addictive disposition was also interesting. These are gamblers, gamers, Candy Crush addicts. They can show some kind of behavioral traits that will dispose them towards this kind of a thing. Like military guy steals widow's heart and nearly 500,000. That's a very sad story. And then there's this Finnish guy who got millions with cryptocurrency, and he spent it all with some, it was a very weird plot. It was in the news like half a year ago. There was these Thai movie stars who had their own crypto coin, like Dragon Coin or something, and they were doing some kind of an ICO, I think initial coin offering or something like that, and he lost millions there in what to anybody sounds like the plot of a bad movie. But he's a risk taker. I think the thing is, guys on average might look for different things in these scamming situations. Because I've received this message from the lady on the right, and she wanted to meet me. And the lady in the middle, I just went to this Scam Digger, Scam Profiles webpage, and I pulled it up. The thing is, I'm a balding, fat, 36-year-old government employee living in Finland. And she wants to meet me. I know I'm getting fucked. This ain't true. This isn't true. This is obviously not true. And, well, they should use different pictures is the thing. You can go to Scam Digger and you can see all these pictures there, and they're still using the same pictures, because I remember the lady on the right, I got that message years ago, and they're still circulating those same images here. And you can check them all out. So how do you protect yourself against this stuff? Well, don't trust your senses, basically. Don't trust the lizard brain that's telling you that you're lucky. And don't trust that your intellect will protect you. And you're smart enough to not be scammed. You have to pay attention all the time. And they try to put a time constraint on what you should do, because usually the hurry is the thing that makes you react in a way that you shouldn't and makes you stop thinking and start acting, which is exactly what the scammer wants, or the social engineer who's trying to gain access to your company, or whoever who wants to get something from you for nothing. And mistrust your sense of good luck, because how often do you really get lucky? Not that often. But on the internet, you get lucky every day, like all the time. You go to your spam inbox and just see how lucky you are, and start clicking and collect the loot and tell me what you got. I'm very interested in hearing about it. And you have an inner skeptic inside you. It could be that you're such a positive person that you don't very much listen to it. It's that annoying voice that says that maybe you shouldn't do that. Like, dude, are you sure? But then there's the side of you that says, hold my beer. And then you try something. So tell the beer guy to shut up. And listen to the skeptic and just go down and say, please tell me more. Because when you're in a hurry, or you feel like you're getting really lucky, or there's imminent danger there are snakes. Basically, you're detecting snakes on those emails. That's when you're being played. Or might be. Sometimes it could be real. Because we can't rely on users to check for technical details, like you should go and read the certificate of the website and check if the issuer is reputable. Like, good luck telling your mom that, but you can tell this stuff to anybody. And you should teach them not tricks like dogs, like don't go on the couch because there's fissures on the couch or whatever. You should educate people on how to think about these issues and see the internet as the endless wasteland of crap that it actually is. And take a different look at all the offers that they get. So thinking about it correctly and detecting these emotions is, in my opinion, the key, because the human factor is being held constant all times. Who knows what kind of computers we will have in 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, but we can be sure that the scammers are there and they're still using proof of concepts from the 1700s to scam us. So the Nigerian letters won't stop with VR, and they won't stop with AV or AI. They might even get better with AI, because they will data mine all your stuff and build the perfect phishing message just for you with a click of a button, because we like to tell social media everything about us. So when you start getting messages, it's not you who's lucky, it's actually your cat Fred who has his own Instagram page. Distrust that too. And when you detect those risks, you have to override a bit of stuff in your brain when you detect something. Always get a second pair of eyes to look at things. And especially advise your users to get a second pair of eyes to look at things, because a lot of people, I think, they might think that when they think something's wrong, they don't want to contact the IT department, because the IT department doesn't like to be contacted. It's annoying, another ticket. So what's your problem? You need to build a culture where seeing something and asking something about it won't result in a situation where you feel dumb. And it might, when some computer genius, who obviously thinks that computers are easy to use, and everybody knows how to use computers, and just gives out simple rules and guidelines which you have to follow but can't because you have a job to do. Tell them about this and tell them about the psychology. And pay attention, because this romance scam stuff, it just pops up there and everywhere. In our families, maybe our own parents, to notify others. That's basically it. As I said, I'm not a psychologist. This is just something I thought up and I thought would be interesting enough to tell everybody. So thank you. I would very gladly welcome some questions if you have any. I know you're mostly Finns, but come on, try. Go ahead. You can get a microphone from somewhere, I guess. There we go. That's our new logo, by the way.
Hi.
Hi.
Simple question. You mentioned those lookalike domains. You had the DHL one. In Finland, does Trafficom have the authority, for example, if I register Microsoft.fi with like 3 eyes and just send out spam messages and you get notified of this, is it Microsoft's burden to do something about it, or can the authorities also intervene and block my lookalike domain?
I'm not actually sure. I should be. I'm really sorry, I don't know the actual answer to that question. I think we used to have the authority to pull down domains when we were the registrars, but when we went private with those, the companies act as registrars, it got a bit harder. I'm not sure where we are at this moment with that thing. So I haven't been doing duty work for a couple of years, so things have changed around during that time, so I'm sorry. Probably we can do something about it, I'm sure. I know there's at least a couple of people from our organization here, so if anybody else has an answer, there's a microphone for you. Any other questions?
I have maybe a comment. I have to run off from the screen to come and give it. I'm actually a huge fangirl of you talking about this. We visited Ericsson earlier, and I contacted on that. But I realized actually while I was watching this for the second time that the problem that we have with cybersecurity right now is that all kinds of systems that haven't been connected to the internet are now reachable from the internet, so they can be attacked from the other side of the world. And social media is doing the same for people. Can we firewall our people in any way anymore?
Well, the Chinese do. so we can. Well, the question really is, do we want to? Because nobody knows what social media is going to do to the world. That's true. It's a huge, unprecedented social experiment. With the Facebook's challenge was to connect every person in the globe. Do we really want to do that? We don't even have a hypothesis of what's going to happen. We know that we're connecting a lot of Nigerian scammers to old widows in Finland. Is that a good thing? Well, yeah, that's an excellent question. I have no idea where to go with that. So, again, another question I can't answer, but I can think about it out loud if you're interested. I think the thing is that we have to teach people like digital self-defense, basically, like Krav Maga, but with a computer. So you can tell when you're being played. That's the point, because when you know you're being played, you can defend against it. It's also very easy to ignore people on the internet. So you can just block, you can filter, you can just stop using a service. I left social media. My life's been so much better now. So nobody's scamming me on Twitter anymore or making me angry. But I think we should really think about how we think about social media and how we talk about it and stop pretending it's only positive. We know it's not. It has a lot of bad qualities to it, and it has a really interesting influence in the world. Well, Donald Trump's president, I think, mostly because of Twitter and Facebook. And I don't think the geniuses in Silicon Valley had that in mind when they created those technologies. Let's take the biggest buffoon we can find and make him president. Yay! Let's help the Russians help us. Oh. Good question, by the way. Any others?
Hi. So question here. So you saw the example of the bill from Apple, and then there were minor differences in those emails.
Yeah.
But there's actually kind of no fundamental reason why they couldn't be actually exactly the same, because the scammer probably also knows the guy's name, and then they could copy the whole thing verbatim. So then we kind of get to the conclusion that teaching users to be URL parsers or whatever does not really work. That's the thing that we've been trying to do for tens of years now.
Yes.
And so, but then if we are trying on the last slides to teach people to notice when they're being manipulated, has anyone actually measured the success of that kind of strategy in an organizational setting?
I'm not aware of any actual scientific papers on that subject. I tried to find them, so if somebody is aware of that, please let me know. I'd be happy to read it. I think there's a Finnish company, Hawkshunt, who has this idea that you should gamify this whole thing. And that, to me, is a brilliant idea. They send phishing messages to companies, and then you try to spot phishing messages. And this is turned into a game, because usually security is a drag. Just it's stuff you can't do and stuff that you have to do. But when you turn it into a fun game where you can win and beat others, and you can be, well, the fish master of your whole company, it's a wonderful idea. It gets people engaged. It's a different, like, you don't train your dog by just yelling at it. You play games with it, you give it treats, and you tap it on the head and make it feel like a good boy, which all dogs are, by the way. And that's how you train dogs. So maybe we should, after all, train users like dogs. So see, I'm flipping around here, I'm thinking out loud. That's how I do it. But I like the game idea. So the more you can bring games and fun into security training, the better results you will get. And I'm sure they have some numbers. I haven't seen them in public, though. Oh, there was one gentleman there.
Yes. Going back to the lookalike domains a little bit. I think there's something that the Finnish authorities can do when it's a feed domain. But if it's for a .com domain, for example,
Yeah.
How do you feel about our chances of going after someone who registers a .com or .net or whatever? Lookalike domain then sets up email service in US or wherever and does something that hurts a company. So what are your thoughts on our ability or our chances of going after those people? Because my preconception is that it's very difficult if they have half a brain.
Yes, and the thing is, it's whack-a-mole basically, but there's 100 million moles. So it's really problematic to approach it from a reactive perspective, like, okay, now we see a scam domain. Well, then the messages are already being sent, and they're already being seen, and those links have been already clicked. Of course, it's important to take down fraudulent websites and fraudulent domains just to throw a wrench into the criminal machine. But I don't think that's the correct approach into actually getting rid of the problem. So we have good connections here. Well, the NCSCFI, we do abuse. I use it as a verb here. We send abuse messages. We call it abusoida. We send abuse messages to a bunch of organizations and website hosters and even domain registrars saying that their resources are being used in crime or fraudulent or malware or whatever. So we do that already. So if you come by those, you can tell them to us and we'll work with them. And we can also talk with other certs in other countries and go to the source. But it's reactive security in a way. And I think the best defense is to teach the users not to be URL parsers, which was an excellent way of saying it. That's not going to work. But usually the users have some kind of an inkling that this is different or this is weird, this message. Maybe it comes at a weird time or it has just weird stuff on it. They can't put their finger on it. They don't know what's weird about it. They don't have the technical know-how, and they won't have. They'll never get that because most users are not even interested in learning those skills. And why would they? They need to keep them updated all the time. But they can have a sense of something being weird, and then they can have an IT guy there, a security guy, who's more than glad to come and have a look, and they can be the URL parser, and they can tell say, the NCSCFI that there's a fraudulent domain here. The thing is, that's a double-edged sword too, because when you have a domain that you know that criminals are using, you can use that as an indicator of a compromise and put it in your IDS systems, and then you can flag the messages. But when you tell the registrar of it, they'll shoot it down, but they have 100 other domains that you don't know about, and they'll just start using those. You can do an infinite amount of permutations of those domains. Just add names and switch up the numbers or whatever, and the users will fall for it every time.
Yeah, I had a comment on the basically tying two things, the Hox hunt and the user awareness and reporting. I have some statistics from the attacker side, as I've been doing red teaming for the past year, and the best results from the defense side that we have seen in our target companies have been those that have actually been users of Hox hunt, but not perhaps because of the gamification reasons, but these companies which have used the Hox hunt report phishing email method for all of their phishing ideas. Like when the user expects or suspects that this is a phishing email, whether it's for Hox hunt or whatever reason, they always just press one button and they don't receive any negative feedback.
Yeah.
So it's very, very easy. And then the IT/security department can actually process those messages. And for example, in one case, we sent out a campaign of 100 phishing emails, and the IT department got 22 reports of phishing.
Nice.
Very, very quickly. So they were able to very quickly react and start blocking emails from our sender, and then also start blocking the domains that we have linked to in the phishing. So I can tell you that that's one of the best ways to actually help organizations, is to have some sort of simple no cost clicking. So there cannot be any negative influences, so you don't feel dumb about clicking that report button.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
but that's for organizations. So any thoughts on how could individuals also do this type of thing?
It's pretty hard, actually. But the thing is that a lot of home users don't have anyone to ask. There's a house full of people who don't know anything about computers, and then it's probably you in your family who they call when they have a computer question. And it always starts in a way, they say, my computer's acting funny. Like, cool. Do you call a mechanic and say that my car is acting funny? Like, what are the symptoms? I don't know, it's acting funny. You're the computer guy. It's pretty hard, pretty hard. So that's a challenge. I think maybe there should be some kind of a system. We get a lot of emails from actual just users, but it's hard to get them to realize that there is a government function that you can contact when you get a weird email. And the thing is that we don't have the capability to work with 6 million Finns and receive all their spam, and that's not the point. So, again, I don't know. Tell them that you're being scammed. Like, you're being scammed, basically. That's it. And then they ask how, and say, well, there are lots of ways, and these are some of them. So maybe just awareness. Tell your mom about scammers on the internet. And dad. He might have a Russian bride somewhere. But I have a minute left. Thank you. Just maybe one quick question more.
Yeah.
And
Thanks a lot for excellent presentation. There's a question that I wanted to ask you for a long time. What was the name of your first pet?
okay, do you have a pen and paper? It's A5B4N6/. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. You've been great.